Hi friends, Mindy here. Today I'm going to be doing my setup for Handcrafted, created for his purpose. I'm going to be making a journal this time, and I'm going to be making one similar to what I created here. For this was Grow in Grace, with this kind of binding that has all of these pieces. It's like a twine binding is what it's called. And so let me just show you, open this up. And the reason I'm picking this is it's going to give me a lot of variety, a lot of ways to work through it. I have a feeling that this book is going to get really chunky, so this is going to give me the most space for what I'm wanting to do. So the way that these are bound in here is I'm just going to create these little kind of folders, and they just slide in this twine binding. Harder to do when it's finished, and so I can work on them outside of the journal and then just kind of slide them in when I'm finished. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be creating with some recycled boxes, but I wanted to show you one thing. I have a couple of boxes here. This is graham crackers, and then I raided my kitchen, some pancake mix. But what I wanted to show was the difference between the actual boxes and what you're kind of looking for in a box if you're going to do this. If you're going to just kind of cut everything out, then this part doesn't really apply to you. But if you're using it for the actual spine, like keeping the spine intact, then this is something that you want to pay attention to. So this box, even though they're very similar in size, the spine is only about 1/4 of an inch different here. This is a little bit wider. The thing is, on the side, I don't know if you can see here, there's these little slits right here, these little cuts in the cardboard, and they're on both sides because of the way that the box is wrapped. So when you go to take this apart, you're not going to have an actual spine that's all in one piece that you can use. It's not to say you can't use this, you just have to do it a different way. So for what I'm going to be doing today, for my purposes, I'm looking for a box that has one of these sides that's going to be the spine, and it's all intact. You can see there's no cuts or folds or anything along on here. And then there is one on this side, but this is the part I'll be cutting off anyway. But this just keeps it so that I'll have a spine in the front and back cover. Of course, there's a lot of different ways that you can bind and cover journals, but this way it's just having a box that's kind of already the shape and size that you want. I'll be cutting mine down just a little bit, but it's already kind of the shape and size. Just it takes a couple steps out of the whole process. And so for me today, that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using this buttermilk box, and then I'll just show you really quick what I'm talking about here, where you just open up the box where this one seam is, and that's the difference between this box and the other box. I'm gonna have to go clean this out, but is that it only has this one seam that you're having to contend with. So I'm gonna go clean all of this out and get it so that I can use it. But I just wanted to point that out, that not all boxes are created equal. Again, this really only applies if you're wanting to have the spine all one piece. If you're okay with piecing together the front and the back and the spine, then that is really not an issue that you have to worry about. But just wanted to point that little piece of information out in case you have never noticed that.
Okay, so once I got everything cleaned out and opened up, I just trimmed this down so that the height of my book is about 6.5 inches, and it's about 5 inches from the edge to the spine, and then I have about a 2.25 inch spine. So these are the fabrics that I'm going to be using. This is the fabric that came from Bythewell4God. This is a 12, it's 10 by 12, and so I'm just splitting it in half here so that I can use a section for the front cover and a section for the back cover, and then I'll use this complementary fabric to wrap around the spine and onto the front and back. So, but the first thing, because that pink fabric, or that's kind of salmon color, is really kind of thin, so I need to apply a coat of gesso on here, and that's just going to make sure that none of this advertising shows through. So I let that sit overnight so that it would dry, and then this is the next day, and I'm going to now start covering my my book here. So I have the fabric. I'm just going to be trimming it down. I want to leave about I think it's about 3/4 of an inch, maybe. The size doesn't really matter, but just an even kind of spacing all the way around. And then I cut that for both pieces so that they're the same size. And I'm going to be using this heat bond kind of interfacing. I'm just going to cut this down to the same size as my fabric pieces here. And I've got my little craft iron heating up here, just kind of on a medium to low setting. It doesn't take much heat, and you just want to make sure your steam is off. And then you just kind of hold it in place for a couple seconds, and then as you just kind of move around, you just want to make sure that as you're moving, you're just overlapping the last section by a little bit, and then just kind of keep the iron moving, and you just cover all of this. And this is going to create that bond onto the paper that will allow us to bond this to fabric. So this heat and bond can go fabric to fabric, but it can also go to fabric and other non-porous surfaces. So you can do this to paper. You just kind of have to let it cool just a little bit. And you can see I have some glue here on my craft sheet. That's why I chose my Ranger craft mat. It's heat resistant. I also have a piece of cardboard tucked underneath there, just in case, to protect my work surface. So now I'm just going to peel off the backing, and you can see I got a little bit outside of the fabric. I'm just going to trim that off with my scissors. It's no big deal. I don't want to get that onto my iron. So bringing back in my chipboard cover here, and I'm just kind of lining this up where I want it to go. I want to be just to the right of the fold for the spine, and then making sure that everything is as even as it can be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but and then I'm going to take some scissors, and I'm just going to kind of cut off the corner sections here. You could cut straight across diagonally. I'm just kind of making them a little bit like a wedge, and that's just going to help when you fold over to get those really nice kind of mitered looking corners. So what I'm going to do actually is work from the inside. I just feel like this would be the easiest way so that I'm not getting glue where I don't want it. So I'm just kind of gluing down each one of these pieces, and you can see it only just takes a couple seconds, and I'm just pressing it down just the same way, just for a couple seconds, and then keeping the iron kind of moving to the next section. And now I will go to the front, and I'm going to do that same thing, just kind of going really slowly across here, making sure that I get all of the parts and everything. And I'm just checking to make sure I don't need to go, nothing has lifted up or whatever. And you'll see that your chipboard might curl just ever so slightly. It's just from the heat, and it will straighten back out. So I went ahead and did the back cover the same exact way. And now I'm going to trim down this fabric to wrap around the spine. I'm giving it about an inch overlap from the front cover and on the back cover. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm cutting out some more of this heat and bond to fit the same size as my fabric. And here I have it all ironed on there. I'm just letting it cool down for a second, and then I'm going to peel it off. First I'm going around and trimming off all of the excess before I try and glue this down. And you'll see here, I left this part in. I forgot to take the backing off. So there you go. Had to let it cool down here for a second again. And I'm going to pull this apart, and you can see that I did not get this bonded all the way. For the back side of the fabric, you can see it's not shiny. When you pull off the backing here, you can see it's kind of shiny, and it feels kind of plasticky. So if you do that, you can just go back through and just reheat it. I just didn't heat. I've got a little impatient, I guess. So this time I actually did heat up on the spine first a little bit, just because I wanted to make sure that it stayed exactly where I wanted it and didn't, move as I was turning things over. And then I came to the inside, and now I just wrapped the spine. But because I'm wrapping over the spine where the spine is folded, I'm just really going to kind of work this in here. I'm going to fold it and bend it. And I'm going to use my fingernails to kind of get down in that groove. If I would have been thinking I would use my bone folder, but anyway, and now I'm just going through and making sure everything is just stuck down really well. And now for the inside cover, I'm going to use 2 of these pattern papers that came as a coordinating item with the kit. These are the 6x8 sizes, and I'm just going to cut them down to kind of layer inside the inside, the cover on the front and the back, and then I'll use another piece for the spine. So I thought about doing it all in the plaid, but I just really felt like that was kind of a lot. So just to kind of break up that pattern, I'm actually going to use the floral, the same pattern as the cover. So, and I'm just going to glue this down. I'm using my ATG here. It's just a really strong adhesive, and I'm putting down a lot of adhesive. And then I'm going to first put this piece in here in the center over the spine. And then I'm going to take my bone folder here, and I'm really going to get into the crease of this. I'm just very gently kind of working the paper, letting it fold naturally so it doesn't crack. And then you'll see I'm going to go over the outside and just burnishing everything down really well, kind of tucking my bone folder into that crease and just really, you know, working the paper a little bit so that it will stay closed. But you just kind of have to be gentle with it, but you just kind of have to keep working at it. So I'm doing the back cover here, just working my bone folder in there. And then otherwise, if you don't do this step, it just won't, it won't stay closed like a book very well. It'll just want to keep popping open. So now I'm just adhering the cover pieces. So this is the back cover, and I'm just lining them up with, they're cut to the same height as that floral piece. So I'm just lining them up so that they're all the same. And that is what my cover looks like, all wrapped in fabric on the front and paper on the inside. And I have a couple things here. I bought these buttons. I thought it might be cute to use these buttons as a closure, but in the end I decided I'm not really sure about it, so I still haven't added these. I may go back and add it later, but for the kind of binding that I'm going to do, I thought about just having like a piece that would wrap around a piece of fabric. So I pulled out this ribbon. This is actually from Felicity Jane in one of my boxes, and it's a beautiful black satin, and I thought I could just kind of, you know, adhere it down with this button and then kind of wrap it around the button for a closure. I have just said there's a few different ways you could do it, but one of the things I want to make sure that I do is to glue this ribbon down underneath. So I need to do it before I wrap the spine. So I'm just going to find the center of this ribbon here, and I'm not measuring or anything. I'm just kind of folding it in half, and I'll just crease the ribbon, and it'll leave enough of a line that I can see where the midpoint is. And then I'm going to put that roughly in the center of the spine here. And then I'm going to use some Fabri-Tac adhesive, because this is going to dry pretty quickly, and that way I will know that it's going to be stuck down. But I'm only gluing in the spine section. I'm not gluing on, you know, outside of that. And then I'm just going to let that dry for a second. And this is kind of what it will look like if I decide to just like tie it in a bow or whatever. But now I need to wrap the spine, and I need to get these long pieces kind of out of my way, otherwise I'm going to be fighting with them. So I'm just using some little binder clip here and just folding up this ribbon and just kind of keeping it in place while I do this. So I have this black and white baker's twine. You could use jute, you could use all kinds of things for this, but this, I just felt like it matched really well. So on the outside of the spine, you want to leave yourself a tag, or a tail. This is what you're going to tie onto. So, and then you just wrap for however many signatures you're going to have. Now, in this case, I'm going to have 14 because the devotional is 14 days long. So I'm going to have basically a signature for every day. So I'm just counting here, making sure I have 14 on the inside, and then I'm kind of straightening them. You just want to make sure that they're not overlapping or, you know, crossing each other. They don't have to be perfectly where you want them right at this moment, but just make sure that they're not crossing over one another. So what I'm going to do is take the little tail side and the piece that's coming up from the bottom here. I got something overlapped. I have to fix it really quick, and just kind of moving everything toward the center. So again, I'm taking the tail piece, and then I'm going to cross it with the piece from the bottom. So I took that piece that was on the bottom right and kind of crossed it over, and this is on top of the twine. And then I'm going to take this long piece and I'm going to tuck it up underneath all of those all of those rows of twine, and then I'm going to tie a knot. Now you could tie a really tight knot right here, just depending, but I'm going to actually keep mine pretty loose because I know that this book is going to expand some. So I'm just tying a little bow right here, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. So at this point I can still embellish the cover. I just haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that, but this is what it will look like when it's all tied up. And then I just want to make the pages really quick for the inside. I'm using some Bristol Vellum Smooth paper. It's 9 by 12, so it works really good for this size notebook, because I'm basically just going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to use my scoring board here, and I'm going to cut or score it at 4.5, and then that will give me the perfect size that will fit inside my little journal here. So I'm going to go through and score all of these pieces of paper, and then I'm going to fold them, and I'm going to burnish that really good with my bone folder, and then I'm going to slide them into my book. I just left one here to show you. It just slides right into the twine binding, and that's it. It leaves a little space at the top. I did that intentionally so that if I have anything sticking out at the top, it won't get, you know, it's kind of protected by the cover. And then for now, I'm just going to tie the ribbon here on the end, and that's my journal. That's going to do it. So if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye bye.